Hey Lars, how are you?
Pretty good. How about you, Puya?
Good. Okay, I'm gonna give you a few minutes to basically introduce yourself and who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Because I wanted to come from you. Yeah. We've been friends for a while, but
yeah, I think
you can
one
do
and a half
justice
years now.
Yeah.
So how about we start with the story how we met?
Cool.
Maybe I can integrate that.
Yeah, that's fun.
So I'm originally from Germany. I'm 21 right now. And I came to Canada after I finished high school in Germany. And mainly just to pretty much spend a year abroad and get to know other countries. But then coming to Canada, I met awesome people like Puya, and I got an amazing job as a software developer, and just broadened my vision for what I can actually do. So much, so I decided to stay, and now I'm already here for about 2 years, a bit more than 2 years already. Generally, I like everything that is technical. I'm a software developer, and yeah, I have a huge curiosity for anything technical, basically. I've never studied, so my angle on what we do at work and how I see the world in terms of education might be a bit different from the standard, but I see this as a valuable thing, actually. And generally, I would describe myself as being pretty relaxed, not over-worrying things, not overthinking things. And I think for like the last 4 or 5 years, I have been constantly trying to improve myself. And this started basically with running. When I was 17, I was not happy with how I looked and how I felt about myself, because I thought I was not sporty enough. And this is when I started running really intensively. Mm-hmm. And I got more and more into the competitive running landscape, which was really interesting. And this just completely changed my life. You feel inherently different running. Right. Exercising for a long time makes you just adapt your mind so much to pain, and not necessarily pain in a bad way, but just going through it and sticking with something, even if it's uncomfortable. Becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. Philosopher.
Yeah. And that really changed my life so far. And this pretty much is also what brought me probably to make the decision to try something else than just going to university straight out of high school, which is the normal path you would probably choose in Germany if you were in the area that I were in terms of high school. So that's basically my story so far. And right now I'm looking into new things that interest me. Physics recently had been becoming more and more interesting to me, thanks to Puya.
Oh, thank you.
Who had been introducing me quite a lot into all kinds of things.
If I have a chance to inspire anybody, I would do it, to go for physics.
Definitely, for physics all the time. That's me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's. I think that's very cumulative, give or take. I'll get to details, but it was so. Actually, you mentioned not conventional way for a lot of people in Germany, or if I think in terms of going to university, I think if people have the opportunity in anywhere in the world, they would want to. Well, the normal would be, quote unquote, normal would be to go to the university first, right? Yeah. But interestingly enough, that's not what I did either. I didn't go to university right off the bat from high school, so that's, I guess, one thing we have in common amongst many. All right, so I'm gonna. So what strikes? So what you strike for me as is someone who adopts a very specific lifestyle. Well, that might be confusing because everybody will say, okay, everybody has a lifestyle, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, very specific in terms of lifestyle. That's very important to you, and you're willing to take chances and experiment with things and try them out. If it doesn't fit, let them go. If it fits, adopt them. Right. So that's how I see you, give or take. And one of the things that I notice is that you're very health conscious. I'll hand it off to you if you want to correct me if I'm wrong, but in any of it. And I think that's important, and we'll get to that. But what made you want to be paying so much attention to your lifestyle, to your health, and anything else in this area?
This is interesting. I think this starts with becoming health conscious around the time when I started running. Right. So I really put an emphasis on wanting to lose weight. And
you weren't fat per se, were you?
No, I was not overweight. I was actually, I think my BMI was at like the mid range, so I was totally fine health-wise.
Cool. But you still wanted to be.
Exactly. I wanted to lose weight.
Right.
And that was my first thought or my first mission I had. And I achieved that by looking into, okay, what actually makes people gain fat? What nutritional sources I should choose in order to not do that. And then, of course, reading online, you get introduced to so many things. First of all, starting with, of course, what is fat, what is protein, what are carbs, how much should you have of each day?
Mm-hmm.
What different sports makes an impact for you? So running, for example, is the most extreme form of calorie exhaustion that you can do.
Right.
Swimming too, but I played a lot of tennis, and that's just not comparable at all.
Okay, I didn't do tennis that
something
much.
Completely different.
Yeah, cool.
It's fun, but it's more something cognitive, right?
Right.
Running is more for calorie burning, and,
that's fair.
and
You don't think too much when you're running.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's actually quite interesting. I think running is somewhat meditational,
cool.
And I really feel different after it. And it's funny. I had not been running for about the last year because I had a small knee injury. But just today, I bought new running shoes because my old ones were just literally torn out. So I want to get into it again starting this week, and I think. Coming back to that question, starting out with trying to slim down, and then generally just figuring out that, hey, actually eating the right stuff at the right time makes you feel so much better. Not only changes your looks, but also your psychology in a huge sense. And then things like intermittent fasting and fasting in general are super interesting and how they change your mind.
Yes. Can you elaborate on what intermittent fasting is for somebody who doesn't know?
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting means that someone is fasting for a large amount of the time of a given day. So for me, that would, for example, look like I would be eating in an 8-hour window, and I would be fasting for a 16-hour window. So this means I would not have breakfast at all and would have my first meal of the day, which would be a late lunch at like 3 to 4 p.m. And then not eat anything after 10, 11 p.m.
Cool.
And there's a mechanism that your body activates and is based on ketones that your liver produces that is an energy source for your brain. And basically whenever your brain consumes them, it's a different energy source than when you have, for example, carbs.
Right.
And for me, this just feels so much different. I feel much more lightweight. I feel much more quicker in thoughts I have and ways of thinking. And it is quite a focus enhancer. Like working in this mode is much more enjoyable.
Right.
So these things, seeing what big of an impact they can have on my psychological side, definitely made me much more aware of what I actually want to eat. And then, of course, basically just teaching myself what to eat and what not to eat.
Cool. That's pretty good. I think but one of the things that you mentioned, you're basically going at, that's super interesting. And I learned from you, I think, in that area. But you and Dan, which is not with us today, this is the first episode that we have on this podcast, actually, that Dan is not with us. So you guys really inspired me to be more health conscious, I think. And that's super interesting. And you both, have that mindset that you go about doing your research, thinking about it. Okay, this makes sort of sense. Let me try it out. If you don't like it, you throw it out. But if you do, you just adopt it and then take on from then on. It's pretty cool. I've been doing this for a while, thanks to your inspirations.
Of course.
I'm happy. I'm not going to say everybody's going to be happy, but I think...
it is crazy how it changes your life in big ways. I think, of course, like the obvious things are not drinking alcohol, not smoking.
That's another thing you and Dan have in common. You both try not to drink alcohol.
Like I'm not a not drinker. Sorry, I'm not a not drinker. No, that's true. I drink occasionally, but in really rare circumstances, 2 times a year, and then maybe have 1 beer. one glass of champagne if it's some kind of festivity. But I just personally don't enjoy it, and I don't really see any gain I get from it.
Right.
There are much more interesting things you can do that don't hurt your body that much, because it's insane on what of a scale of drugs in general. Alcohol hurts your body. So yeah, even if you just do these obvious things, not smoking, not drinking, or exercising for 20, 15 minutes a day.
Sorry. So you don't want weed?
No,
maybe.
Not really. Also, if so, really, really occasionally, but not generally.
Cool.
And I think if you nail these three things, then your life already changes so much to the more positive side.
No, that's fair. That's really fair. And so all of that, you have another unique quality in terms of lifestyle, if you will, and that is the fact that you really like to challenge yourself, push yourself to the boundaries, go to the unfamiliar realm, uncomfortable realm, and take on something that you're not comfortable with. You're terrified of it. You go push yourself towards it, do it, and make yourself. Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned is becoming comfortable with not being comfortable.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's actually very well said, and that's, I guess, the holy grail of challenges, right? So why do you do it? Are you like crazy or something?
No, I actually think it's a common thing that a lot of people that I look up to share with me to some degree.
Right.
And I have so much to improve in that way, but I think it already improved me so much by.
You want to give some examples? You look up to.
It starts with running. Running is uncomfortable, right?
Sure.
You start out 15 minutes and you're like, yeah, this is okay. And then you are at like the 19th minute when you're like an unexperienced runner and you're like, whoa, this is actually pretty hard. And then at minute 25, you're like, this actually is pain.
Yeah.
And going through that is the only way to progress with running, right? You have to somehow run more than you ran last time in order to get somewhat better over the long term.
Sure.
If you want to always improve. And there are just so many things in your life that you can do. Waking up early is uncomfortable, but it has a lot of benefits. Right. First of all, just getting up early in the morning starts your day right. You have this mindset that you already accomplished something by getting early up. Yeah, getting up early. And I think if you have this mindset, okay, I already did that. I already woke up at 6 a.m., 6:30, whatever the time is. Then I can probably also sit down 2 hours now and do something on a project that I probably should be doing. Right. Even if it's uncomfortable, but there's this mindset that just starts to be like a trickle effect where basically, now I've already done this. I already started my day so great. As a perfect template. Now I can also execute the rest perfectly. Fair enough. This makes it much easier, and for me, I think generally it makes life easier to do the hard things. I probably would. So
it's counterintuitive, but actually it is the easier choice for the long term.
Over the long term, 100%. Over the short term, no. But yeah, I think running is the best example of that. Taking cold showers, also.
Cold showers, right?
Yeah, good at getting used to that. It maybe sounds kind of weird, but I think getting used to these things just also changes your mindset of how comfortable you are talking to a stranger. How comfortable are you to go up to that girl and ask her for something, right? Right. And these are definitely still areas I have to improve a lot in, and I want to improve a lot in. But doing it continuously and pushing yourself, I think, is just the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was I know like a lot of people are right now listening to the podcast. A lot of people, I'm sure, of our audience are actually doing what you're saying and you're doing. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure there are going to be ones or twos that are going to be like, oh, but what would I want to go for running? Like you mentioned, if you want to become better, for example, at running or be able to run longer. But they're like, okay, I'm not going to be running from bears. It's like we're living in a civilized society. Why would I want to do that? Yeah. I mean, waking up, okay, you had reasons to support that, right? Yeah. But some of the things, for example, why would you want to be comfortable with people? Why would you want to be run fast? Well, especially run fast. There's still, being comfortable with people makes more sense because, of course, you want to be comfortable talking to people.
Benefit from that.
But why would you want to be running faster or longer or farther?
I think it's just proving to myself that I can be better than what I think I can be. So
it takes a psychological toll, maybe.
Yeah, psychological toll, definitely. it's this thing that if you say, okay, I'm gonna run the 10K this Sunday morning, and you set out to do it, and at the 9th kilometer just hurts so fucking much. But going through that pain, I think actually teaches yourself a lot, that you can go through these rough periods.
Yeah.
Quite easily, but just trying to not let this pain get into you and stop you.
Cool.
Just to go through it, plow through it, and especially once you're done, you just feel amazing. And then of course you still have physical exercise benefits, right?
True.
I mean, if you now run 5K or 10K, that's probably not that big of a difference. But still, psychological, it is a really huge thing for me.
Cool. So it's a win in your back.
Yeah, definitely.
Built in. Anyways, so cool. That's good. That's all good and done and dusted. You had an experience that you shared with me a couple of years ago or so. I don't even remember. 1.5 years ago, perhaps.
Yeah.
First, you shared with me the first time, and that was this thing called Burning Man, which I'm sure a lot of people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into that?
Oh yeah, hell,
cool.
That's it. Burning Man is interesting. So Burning Man is basically, if you see it from like a 30,000 feet perspective, it's basically 70,000 people once a year coming into the desert of Nevada, camping there to do basically...
To gamble? Las Vegas? No?
No, it's close by. The weather is the same. But basically to do whatever they want. And in a positive sense. And it's not that there are guns allowed or super crazy fucked up things happening, but it is more so that you can create an alternative world. And this alternative world called Burning Man really amazingly works on a gifting system. So the way it works is that 70,000 people come together and they build up camps. And every camp provides something. So I was this year with a camp called the Red Herring, and we would provide a space for people to come in. There was in the form of a 40s hotel room. We had a fireplace, we had a bed, we had a small stage where we had opera and violin performances throughout the night, throughout the day. We had live DJs playing on this stage. It's amazing, and this was pretty much our gift to the pyre. This was the thing that we did to serve other people there or to give them something. But this gifting economy is amazing in the fact that you go to Burning Man and you do not have any money on you for a week. You don't have a cell phone for a week. And you experience the most amazing things that you've ever experienced in this 1 week.
How do you check your Snapchat or Instagram? I don't have Snapchats, by the way. I don't even know how that works.
Yeah. Well, I don't have Snapchat. I have Instagram.
Instagram, sorry. Okay, cool.
But even that, I probably check like once a week.
Sure, cool.
There is internet if you really want to. If you like go to the edge of the, well, Burning Man is not technically a festival, but it's, if you call it festival, if you go to the edge of it, there is some internet, but generally there's just no reception. So
cool. It's middle of the desert, right?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Like the fact that you can use your phone is amazing. Is there
electricity there?
Well, people bring generators, right?
Okay.
So it is kind of sophisticated camping culture, so to speak. So people set up pretty sophisticated camps sometimes,
right?
With a big kitchen, generator, showers.
Cool.
And then you have the other end where people just literally come in a tent and they just, I don't know, maybe get a shower twice here and there from some other camp, and bring some protein bars, and that's about it. So there are these two extreme ends, and there has been a lot of discussion going on lately with how much money there's going into these camps, and generally the purpose, at least in my eyes, of Burning Man is that you should go there and give something. And there had been a lot of discussion about these plug and play camps, they're called lately, where people basically just pay a lot of money to get into these camps, but they don't really provide anything back.
Right.
So there's a lot of discussion going on, but I don't even want to speak that much about it. In general, Burning Man is an amazing experience.
Why is it called Burning Man?
So it started out in San Francisco, And basically this whole event is surrounded or aims around this man. He's called the man. It's a big statue, mostly made out of wood. And he's burned at the second last day of the event. And it's always a big spectacle. So you have fireworks, you have big fire where everyone gathers around. And it is just, the sign of Burning Man, basically. And there's one piece of art. At Burning Man, there's just so much art, so much amazing art. So basically, we have all the camps relatively closely together, and they all are in a half circle. Mm-hmm. And in between these camps and further out in what you would call the playa, there's lots of art spread out in the desert. So art could be anything, basically from a door standing in the middle of the desert without any hint on what the artist intended with that door, to literally paintings or sculptures. So there's a lot of variety. You can climb onto stuff. You can interact with people. And it's just amazing what conversations this strikes if you're on a bike in the middle of the desert,
right?
In clothing that you think represent you the most, and then there's maybe some kind of sandstorm coming up. You have no idea where you are. You end up with some art piece, and then you just meet random people and you talk art. You start talking about the meaning of life and what do you think is most important for you, for humanity. What do you think about this art piece? Like these random conversations are just so interesting, and I think it's really hard to reproduce them outside of Burning Man, at least in like a general environment. And in general, just this fact that this is a gifting economy strikes me so back. It's so hard. Taking money after Burning Man into your hands feels weird. And going into a coffee shop and buying a coffee, instead of going somewhere and being like, "Hey guys, how's it going? Can I help you out? Can I give you a hug?" To basically ask for a coffee straight ahead. And someone gifts it to you, or I don't know.
It's like going to Starbucks and being, "Can I get a coffee?" And they're like, "Sure." And
give me a hug or something, and then you get it. Or I don't know, you have to do, I don't know, paint something or anything. Like the thing is that gifting doesn't mean that you have to give something back necessarily, right? But sometimes it's just super cool to do that, even just to give the person a hug and be like, "Hey, this is super cool what you guys are doing." And this range of gifting can be, or it is so huge, this range. It starts with people giving hugs, which I think is an amazing thing to do. But it's relatively basic, right? It's amazing, but it's relatively basic.
It's very good.
But then on the other spectrum, you have people who, what they basically give back is they carry an enormous art piece that they worked on for a whole year, maybe even more, into the desert. And they build it there for weeks before, in like the hottest of environments you can imagine on planet Earth, and they just do that so you can go there in the middle of the desert of Nevada, and can have a look at this art piece. And I think that is amazing. But there's so much in between this range,
right?
And of course it's hard to attach values to what someone would give to, right? And I don't even want to do that, but you can pretty much find anything, whatever you can imagine there. And then, of course, the humans just inherently behave different. It's not true for everyone there,
right?
But a large group just is different. Not having money, not having cell phones, knowing that this is the place. Well, it sounds maybe somewhat. Maybe that's not the right direction, but I would call it, it's a place to do the stuff you usually don't do. Which doesn't mean bad things. I think good things, or that you maybe are afraid to do in real life.
Right.
And my goal is to take back as much as I can from this world into my life. To not be afraid of certain things, to be more open to people, to be more gifting, and to be more acceptant of if things maybe don't turn out the way you want to because someone else wanted it another way, but still work with that and be accepting of that. And I think that it just in me created tremendous value. And every year I've been there twice so far. The perspective just completely changes on what's going on there, and it's really interesting because I spoke to some older, more senior burners they're called, people that are going to burn. People that had been there for 20, 25 years, and they said, yeah, for me still changes every year what I experience here and what I take home. So it's not a music festival that you go to experience the music.
Right.
It's more so for figuring out how your inner workings actually function and how you socialize. I think that's the biggest reason to go there. And of course, to have fun.
That's amazing. It seems like a very big world, so I guess we can like talk about it forever.
Yeah.
But we don't have forever. But you did talk about the fact that some of these like interesting questions you don't always get a chance to talk about on a day-to-day basis, and when you're meeting your pals, so let's talk about it here. You mentioned like, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get a philosophical conundrum of what is the meaning of life per se, but I want to say, what is most important for you? What is your purpose? What is your mission, if you will? Yeah. I'm not talking about the goal that you have for tomorrow or the day after or maybe 5 years. I'm saying like the ultimate goal or purpose of your life. What are you trying to achieve?
I mean, tomorrow definitely being alive. That's important.
That's definitely important.
But in general, I think it's about improving humanity. And
what constitutes improving humanity, though?
That's a good question, and I think it is quite interesting in the perspective of capitalism.
Okay.
Improving humanity with providing something that enables humanity to progress.
Cool.
Which might be a new online software, which might be a new mode of transportation, which might be new medication, which might be a new, more efficient way of housing. So there are these things that progress humanity, and I think the ultimate way at the moment, at least in this capitalistic world, to create value is to create a business that actually progresses, as I've said. So not building a business that's primary aim is for making profit. Well, let's say the primary aim is for making profit, and the secondary aim is for progressing humanity, because in the end the company is still a company, and if you want this company to be alive, then it has, of course, to be profit-oriented. Yeah,
that's fair. I mean, there's no, like, when you're talking about, we're living in an economy-based planet, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong about it. There are wrong things in this world.
Oh, yes.
And, of course, there are. Like, I just want to be very clear. I'm not saying. But at the same time, like, a lot of the time, people attribute that to the fact that we are living in an economic planet, which honestly, I don't see any particular alternative. Maybe on a short scale in a smaller community for a shorter period of time, like Burning Man, you can do different types of economies. But I don't think that would be very sustainable over a long period of time and with 7 billion people on this planet.
Yeah.
So I think that's perfectly fair. But obviously, there are bad players in this big game of ours, and I think those bad players basically ruin some things and that's not actually a lot of them. I think that's in the minority. I really believe in people, and I really believe in that most people are actually good. They might sometimes be confused. We all are at some point or at one degree or the other, but it's not like they're evil. Most people, I'm pretty sure there are evil people.
Yeah.
I've encountered a few of them, but they were really most people. Yeah.
Yeah. To have a point on that, I actually think that every human is generally having goodwill and wants other humans to succeed to a degree too. I really believe in that we basically start out as a blank slate when we are born, and everything that determines how we behave with, let's say, the age of 25, 35, 45 is all based on memory on what we had until then.
Cool.
So I think it is not always necessarily the person's fault if they're misbehaving. I think it is to some degree the environment, but of course you have to have this ability to go around that and see that your environment is actually shitty,
right?
And change that and get out of that. And I think that's one of the biggest human capabilities that you can have to assess that you're not in a good position. You want to move on. So I think generally people are good. I
think so too.
There are definitely, yes, of course, there are people that I disagree with on a psychological level on certain things. But I think even that is a level of misunderstanding.
Sure.
And of course, it comes from backgrounds, right? So it starts with religion and goes into some political things
Right.
that I totally disagree with. And it's just how they brought up. It's just what their memory of what they basically processed so far in their life was. And when you take that into account, I don't think that there are necessarily truly bad people out there.
Yeah, I think especially nowadays that we have, such a polarized world, and specifically in America, I suppose.
Oh, yes.
We don't live in America, but we're all affected by America in one way or the other. But in general, in the world, you see the rise of populism and the fact that. So I think it's very important to understand that the other people are not really your enemy. Like,
they're not.
No, they're not. But more and more when I turn on TV, I don't turn on TV, but I don't have a TV, but when I'm basically...
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. Like, you see the news, you see some people are talking. It feels as if they're treating each other as enemy. I don't know if they believe it or not. I mean, again, it's fine to disagree, and I think it's healthy to have a healthy, rational conversation, right?
Of course.
But at some point, they turn into chaos and mayhem.
Yeah.
And obviously, we don't want to do that. So how do you deal... So if somebody's idea or the way they think, or very specific thing, or in general, is radically different than yours, like day and night, black and white different. How do you engage a conversation, assuming they have the rationale to have a conversation with you? How do you bring them to that rationale? How do you engage them in this conversation?
I think it really depends on the situation. In general, if I'm not affected by it, of them having this view, then I would probably just lay out the points as I think they are. So if it's, for example, about religion, about what specific religion someone holds or what their views are on it, then I would just basically lay out the points and on how I think about it. Let them rationalize about these points, think about these points, and let's seeing if they come on their own to the conclusion based on these points. And this comes back to the memory I just talked about. These points are also just memory that your brain, your consciousness has to process and then to reason about. And maybe they're not convinced on the spot, but maybe 1 year later they're like, yeah, this actually makes sense.
Right.
So I think there's that where I want to help someone because I think my view is better. Right. Now, that's a pretty dangerous thing to assume that my view is better. So usually I don't want to try to convey to someone or try to convert to someone and say, hey, you should definitely think about this way.
Right. I think a lot of people do argue or start a conversation with that only in mind. Like they really try to change the other person's mind.
Yeah, I think that's just not my goal. If I see that I have or that I could solve a problem in his life, but changing his view on something, then yes. But otherwise, I don't need to spend any energy into turning someone's mind on any topic. But on the other hand, of course, if it actually impacts me directly, then I definitely want to see and hear and listen to his points, to learn about his point of view, maybe change my point of view, lay out my points, and be rational about it. I think the worst thing you can have in this case is emotion, especially if it affects you, which is quite hard. But getting the perspective from a friend on it pretty much always helps, some outsider who is not that emotional about it. And yeah, I think in the end it's pretty important to just have strong opinions loosely held. So have your strong opinions, have a strong way of thinking about something, a clearly defined way. That's probably how I would express it better. But then be able to change this relatively easily when someone actually tells you something that makes sense to your brain and is better. don't stick to something only because you stuck to it before or because you think this is the right way to go. But be open to the new things, to the new concepts. And so far, I think this has worked out quite well.
No, I think that's a good advice. And maybe, well, you mentioned emotion, and I agree with you. Like, I think in these conversations, emotion is actually not your friend.
Yeah.
I think emotions are good. I don't have anything against emotions per se, but in a rational conversation, emotions don't have a place, essentially. So, and maybe the worldwide conversation that we are having, one of the reasons we're not seeing things, I mean, obviously we have emotions about them, but then we don't have a third party who's emotionless in these conversations to turn to get a new perspective. So we all have emotions.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So for example, in me being a German and cool. Seeing what the time was in the US leading up to the latest election, the Trump administration election. It was super interesting to see this contrast. In Germany, everyone thought that this guy could never win. This is a joke. It's totally unrealistic. And that even both of these candidates are somewhat inherently different from what European politics look like. But then you come to Canada and it's like, yeah, this guy might actually have a chance. And you see supporters here, which just blew my mind.
Interesting.
So I think as a European country, it has somewhat this effect of this alien that just can look at these things somewhat without emotions. Still, we're heavily affected by it as the German nation. But of course, way less than Canada is. Canada is just so close to the US. But I agree. I think it would be interesting. I mean, the United Nations to some degree is something like that, right? But also there are so many power dynamics with who has to say how much.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's so many problems in terms of world politics, I suppose. But
yeah,
I mean, one in particular regarding the conversation we are having, I was thinking maybe. Well, you just mentioned that and it popped in my head. I didn't really give it much thought. But obviously we have a lot of problems, and we have to be able to have a conversation, and we talked about that. But let's talk about what problems or challenges of today and tomorrow. Let's start with today. Well, I guess one of the challenges of today is to start being able to have a conversation, civilized conversation, rather than shouting at each other or accusing each other of being the bad guy or something.
Yeah.
There are any other immediate, like today things that you think are our challenges?
Well, I think there are two. One is really closely to what you just talked about, and more in regards of social media.
Right.
Social media just acting as a magnifier of our opinions.
Right.
And we're just slapping these opinions right, left to each other, and then we're getting nowhere really. So I think we should have more civilized discussions on social media. I think that social media in general can be helpful to us.
That's true. It's very toxic in social media.
It is toxic. Right. And I think this is somewhat also made apparent by, or was instilled by this fact that the internet is somewhat anonymous, even though on Twitter, some people are somewhat anonymous. Some people are on there with the real name. But it is seen as this platform where you can say anything without really having any backlashes. At least so far, which is changing, right? But I think using this tool actually better is a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's going to look like. I really have no idea. But getting more civilized on that, I think that is definitely one goal. And then the other one, which is, I think, maybe tool to that. And I think the second one that's much, much bigger than what we just talked about, which maybe what social media can help elevate is, of course, global warming. I think that is a really big problem we have and we will have. And I think a lot of people are underestimating it by a lot. Mm-hmm. And seeing how we are doing with our targets of 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees, it doesn't look that great.
Yeah.
And I think it is part of our responsibility to do something about that. And I think my part definitely in this is not to live in the woods and don't shower and don't use electricity, but actually do whatever we have, this comfortable life, make it more affordable in terms of CO2 emissions or whatever else we emit, basically, that enhances global warming. So I think this is definitely one of the biggest, way underestimated challenges humanity faces. And I find it interesting how this will transcend nations. It's not a problem that one nation has. It's a problem that the whole world will have to some degree.
Right.
Some more, some less. But in the end, we are all responsible for this.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see. I think there are two scenarios on maybe how this could spin out. I think one scenario is that basically a lot of countries will have a lot of damages and a lot of expenses with rising world levels. And a lot of people will have to move, which will be also quite expensive, which will maybe even form new nations to some degree, new borders.
Yeah, that's true.
Which could involve wars. I totally do not hope so, of course, but I think it's somewhat inevitable.
Yeah.
And the other option, I think, is trying to do as much as we can against it. Maybe actually creating something that can take CO2 back out of our atmosphere and decrease, maybe even lower our maximum temperature increase to, let's say, 1 degree, which would still have an impact, which we are already definitely sensing today, but having an impact that's definitely manageable. But of course, it is interesting on an international level on how to agree on these things, right? How much is each country gonna spend on this? If the US is gonna spend 40%, 30% of the tax money, which the party should do to reach this target realistically, but China is not doing it, and their emission is increasing exponentially, then of course they will just have such a bigger economical growth than the US, which the US does not want. So there has to be some international agreement that everyone subscribes to this.
Well, wasn't there an international agreement called Paris Agreement?
Well, there is this Paris Agreement, but first of all, it's way too conservative.
True.
And second of all, of course, there is this guy in the current US administration who just didn't like this agreement because of commercial interests for his own country.
It's really ironical because a lot of even with commercial interest, like long-term commercial interest, you should be still worried about all this.
Yeah.
As we speak, California is burning, I think, right? I don't have that much.
No, California is burning right now.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess. I don't know, man. It's a tough problem to crack. I don't know if we have to be able to crack it or we cease to exist. That's simple.
I'm not so sure about the cease to existing. I think there will always be humanity. I think we will still have humanity in a
thousand years. As we know it will cease to exist.
Oh, yes, of course.
But at the same time, I would say there is a chance that we ultimately cease to exist because of climate change. I'm not saying that we necessarily will. You're right. It might be a different scenario, but it could. It could go to the point that actually we become like a Venus-kind planet. I mean, there is a probability.
Yeah.
We don't really know how big it is if it goes really far. But anyway, and that, I'm pretty sure that fits the category of problems of tomorrow too. So let's put climate change out of the problem. Well, it is a big problem, and we can talk about it forever, and we are not doing justice to it, I think. But but we have so much time, so let's just put that aside for a few minutes and then go towards. So what do you think are the problems of tomorrow beside climate change? Not today, but coming soon.
It's interesting.
We're on the verge of it, or we're transitioning to the tomorrow or those problems.
Yeah. What I see pretty big is cybersecurity. Okay. Anything that involves any kind of software and is exposed to a wide network, like the internet, has increasingly over the last few years more and more attack surface, and there are just so many things that are broken in the world of software. Right. It's unimaginable. Like the amount of insecurities that is built in our software, in our day-to-day software, that we trust with money, with our identity, with documents, with making decisions of buying stocks, with making decisions of shutting down or starting this nuclear power plant, with making decisions of firing a rocket or not firing a rocket, which, to some degree still, of course, humans build these things and probably often, most of the time, still press the button. But these things are all attackable. Right. And whoever has the knowledge and the skills to tell a computer what to do on the most basic level can make your device and basically make whatever you want, what he wants to do, he or she, and get your data, and also can make what he or she ever wants to do with it. And I think, or for me personally, identity theft is one of the scariest things I can imagine that right. could happen to me. I do not want my bank accounts to be empty the next day.
No, I don't want that either.
And I don't want my Instagram to be used for the next Trump campaign. Like these are things that really scare me, and I think that these are the smallest problems we have. Thinking of Stuxnet and some other huge hacking things that happened in the past, it's kind of insane to think about how much we rely on unsecure software in this really high security places like nuclear power plants, like weapon systems.
Speaking of nuclear power plants, that I guess constitutes a danger. No, you don't think?
I like them. I think they're great.
No, I meant like nuclear warheads rather.
Oh, nuclear warheads. No. Well, there might be some benefit to maybe terraform a planet or sometime with them, but otherwise I don't see really any necessary.
Right, yeah. I think
to have them around. Of course not. But nuclear power in general, I think is great if it's handled right. Great.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, right? Yeah. We gotta be a little bit careful with nuclear stuff. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Security is definitely has always been a big thing, but then we are becoming more reliable. We are more relying on these things as time passes, right? So it becomes more and more important by the virtue of we depending on these machines much more. So the security must become tightened more.
100%.
More reliable. So I mean. I think that I would agree with you. That's definitely.
I mean, you have experience in this too, right? You have developed software before too, and you have a lot of knowledge in this area. And for me, it's just amazing to see how simple sometimes security systems can be. For me, even just the knowledge of learning when I was 16, 17, that you can basically pick 98% of the logs you see in less than 5 minutes with a log picking kit that costs you less than $50.
Right.
Just to some degree scared the shit out of me. I'm like, why do we have doors even? Like,
well,
and to some degree, I see software and in the same view. There are some mechanisms that are just do not help, or people just do not think about doing something bad with their software. Like the developers just don't develop with this mindset in mind. And I don't think it should be necessarily. Like me as a programmer, I don't want to think 90% of the time how someone could do bad things with my software or could misuse it. But it definitely should be a part of software development. It should be much bigger part than it is right now.
You mentioned terraforming another planet. Are you a proponent of space exploration?
Oh yes, 100%. I think. Yeah, I think we have to do it. I think Elon Musk in this case is totally right. That we have to make a backup of humanity and some kind of other planet.
Right, yeah.
And it's just like any other kind of exploration we have on the planet, and generally it leads to great things. It leads to innovations. It leads to new social dynamics. We probably will have some form of new government up there.
Right.
It would be super interesting to see how this actually will sustain itself over the long term. Like I think the first 10 years will be, well, let's say the first 15 years of having some kind of Mars colony will be a lot of technical innovations and will really push humanity in these kinds of area. But I think in the long run, it will be really interesting to see what the social strategy up there will look like. Like, will it be its own government? Will it be a planetary government? Will there be governments in between? Maybe it will not even be a government, and it will be something completely else. Would it be a dictatorship?
Who knows? Yeah.
Democracy, meritocracy. There are so many options on how this could spin out, and it also is restricted to a whole new set of rules, right?
Sure.
On planet Earth, you can just I don't know, if you didn't like that country in the 1800s, well, you could go to America and
right.
make a colony there. I mean, it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
But it's simple in a way. You could leave, you could take a ship, and you could go somewhere else.
Right.
Not easy, but simple. On Mars, that's kind of hard. If you don't want to stay with your colony, well, take a flight back. Maybe you can, maybe you can't.
Right.
Go on somewhere on your own. Maybe you can have a tent, a Mars tent, and a small Mars station on yourself, by yourself. But you definitely need resources, right? It's not that you can hunt deer there and live off fish.
Yeah, no, that's true. And at the same time, like, we as humans been living on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. So, well, although we are progressing technologically, we know what's what about our planet roughly well.
Yeah.
But we have no idea what's happening on Mars, or how do we? Well, you mentioned like you can't go fish. Like that's not a thing.
Well, but you can go fish, so that meaning that you're bound to this colony, right? You can't just go out and do your own thing.
Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah,
you're dependent on someone bringing in resources from planet Earth. At least I think for the first few years.
Well, eventually maybe the story differs, but yeah, for sure, obviously at first you gotta be sustained from it.
But it's actually quite interesting because I mean, building a spaceship is definitely a whole nother level than building a sea ship, like a shipping ship, right?
Yeah.
But imagine that would be quite similar to how colonists evolved on planet Earth before, right? They built their own ship.
Yeah.
They go to a different country. They go to a different continent.
True.
Build a colony there. Imagine that the same thing would happen with Mars. They build their own spaceship. They're going to Mars.
Yeah.
Declare this is their land, and they just built a colony.
That's true. It could happen. Yeah. Well, they didn't have to suffer think about oxygen when they were going, for example, to America.
Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly what I meant, right? With the fish, right? You can't fish on Mars.
Yeah. No, there are so many things that we have to consider.
Yeah.
And we don't want to bring plague to Mars or back. So there are so many challenges, but there's no other option. We have to do it. You're right. We have to have a backup, as you put it. And ultimately, if you don't do that, then definitely humanity will cease to exist. Maybe be it hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years, but eventually that will happen.
Yeah.
Like we would have the actual global warming, which is the sun's surface temperature getting hotter and hotter, and will become Venus basically. So that's inevitable. Anyways, and also there's another avenue that everybody talks about. So I gotta ask you, and that is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Is that a threat, or is that do you love them? Or I wouldn't say anything but nice about robots because we're recording everything by them, basically. No, I'm joking, actually.
Yeah.
Feel free.
No, you have not a lot of knowledge in this field, and I feel like it is a bit hyped to some degree. We have narrow AI at the moment, right, to some degree. So we have machine learning algorithms that just basically take a lot of data in, and they give you back some kind of function that, given some data, can give you some probability of what this is, what you gave it, or what you should do next based on this information.
Yeah.
So it's a learning machine basically, and right now the labeling takes a lot of intelligence of labeling this data,
mm-hmm.
And these are all narrow. So whatever you get out of this machine learning function is narrow to a specific field. Most of the time. I mean, you kind of something that's maybe not narrow in the sense of it can identify a million different objects in an image, but it's still narrow and it can only detect images. And having something in general AI that I think people think about, something that's all-knowing, that's more intelligent than human, that may be even conscious. I think we are still quite some time from that away. But the problem is that we could not really see it coming. So it could happen that whatever this general intelligence is at some point just grows overnight so extremely exponential that you literally wake up in the next morning and we are ruled by some kind of AI. And I think that is a totally possible scenario.
Oh yeah.
I think it's not realistic right now.
No,
but
not now.
We don't know when it will happen, but it could happen at some point. And I think it is some kind of danger, also in regards to what we spoke about before, that cybersecurity.
Right, yeah.
Really a lot of tech surface, and it just rules so much of our daily lives. So I think, if we have better cybersecurity, if we have generally maybe a way to integrate AI with our bodies, that's the best way to go. Combining these two, I think that increases our probability of not fucking it up a lot.
Yeah.
And I really think that what Elon Musk is doing basically with working on a brain interface, or maybe not he specifically, but his team, is definitely an interesting avenue. Trying to bind this artificial intelligence with a human mind. And of course, this can still go wrong, right? As we talked about, there are some people that we definitely disagree with, that we don't like. We don't like the decisions. So ultimately, I think there's not really a perfect solution. But I think it will have a big impact on our lives. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't want to delve into that too much, but I would say I think our best hope is to be able to merge with them. I think that if not the only hope, is definitely the best hope, I think. That's my view on it. Anyway, so there's so many challenges. I mean, we didn't even touch the surface, I suppose. We talked about the most important ones, I think. We left so many out still, but there's so much time to talk about all of this. What I'm trying to get here is that we have so many challenges. We know we got to get our conversations right. We cannot act, as groups or cults. We have to work together. There's no other way around it. It's much more efficient. Anyways, but a lot of people will hear this and they're like, okay, I'm not in tech, or I'm not in, I don't know, I don't work on climate, or I'm not building spaceships to Mars or whatever. So point being, a lot of people will be like, okay, I as an individual, what am I to do to help the situation or not make it worse, right? Obviously, there are some who are doing it, or who want to do it, or who are pursuing it, but there are many, probably most people, that are not actively in their day-to-day job directly touching these situations,
100%,
as their jobs or whatever. So, what should they do? Why do they even have to care, or what? Yeah. Or do they have to do anything? Maybe not. I don't know. What are your takes on it?
I think in general, talking about it helps. Keeping a constant topic, being aware of it. Probably the most immediate thing you can do is actually putting money towards it. So there are definitely things you can put money into that will help decrease CO2 emissions. Money has a lot of power. I think that definitely can have a pretty big impact. If you have a lot of money to spare but you don't directly work on it, do it. As well as I think a really important other part is calling out these people that maybe don't realize what bad of an impact they have, that are sitting on these big levers we have. People that work for gasoline companies, people that broker deals between these companies, people that do not believe in certain futures like electric transportation, like people that see nuclear power plants as too dangerous. And this is my total own opinion, on these views. I think trying to convince these people. This comes back to exactly what we talked about in the beginning. And I think in this case, it is something that directly impacts me. So really trying to convince these people that, hey, what are you doing? Does this have such a big impact on humanity, not just on a few people that are living on some remote island? No, on everyone, and especially kids and grandkids.
Right.
So I think that is definitely a thing that everyone can contribute to.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's first of all, keep the conversation going. Make sure that everybody understands what we're up against and what we're doing. I think that's a good way to put it. That's a minimum that anybody can do, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you just know there are challenges that we are facing and we want to solve some problems. The fact that you keep this conversation going around, I think, is important. And becoming the main topics of a conversation rather than, there are the other stuff that are talked in news are also important. Of course, they're important. The differences that we have is, United States or other countries they have in their political system. Those are, of course, they're important. They impact their immediate job markets. Of course, they're important.
Yeah.
But we cannot lose sight of tomorrow just because we have a deadline today.
Yeah.
Because the deadline tomorrow comes tomorrow. And if you're not looking at it, then we have another deadline. That's a bigger deadline. It's a much more massive deadline, and maybe you can't even face it without a head start. So, I think you're right. That conversation is the minimum that anybody can do. And with regards to climate change, I agree with you. Like, minimally, everybody can keep their own emission to a minimum.
Yes, I agree.
I agree that we are beyond the fact that that's not going to solve anything, but that might help a little.
It's about a mindset, right?
And it's about a mindset, true.
Yeah.
So it's always good to. There's so many things, and you can always engage politically regarding these things. When you're going to vote, simply vote for people who care about these.
Oh yeah, right? That's definitely a pretty big thing.
That's first of all, you gotta vote. If you have a vote, you have to vote because that's how democracy works.
Yeah.
Simply. And at the same time, you got to choose people who are basically they align with these concepts, right? Their goals and missions align. So
it's crazy. Just to say one more thing to this point. In Germany. When I grew up, we were taught this in elementary school. We had to make projects on global warming. What it is caused by. We went to the local municipal, how would you call this? House. I don't know the proper word, to be honest.
Say that German. Some people might be German unknown.
Stadtrat.
Cool. Yeah. We'll Google it.
Everyone will know what I mean.
Okay.
And we talked with the major about this topic, what he will do about it. He explained, his point of view on it. Right. And then we made presentations about this, and this all happened in elementary school, and then throughout secondary school, of course, everyone knew that global warming is a thing. Everyone knew that we had to do something about it, and I think Europeans are relatively, on a relative scale, much more conscious about this, much more aware of this. Yeah. Then going to Canada and hearing for the first time that there are people in this world who do not believe that there is such a thing as global warming, just blew my mind. I could not believe that these people do not believe.
Interesting.
Which is insane. I think these people definitely have to be convinced.
It's not even. It's like looking at the sun and saying this is night. This is that obvious at this point.
Yeah, but in the end, I think that's not the most impactful thing we can do. Instead of trying to convince other people, I would rather do something.
Definitely not the most efficient, but it's important to get everybody on board. That's interesting. I always had people, doubters, if you will, around me. So it's not a surprise to me ever. But it never ceases to surprise anyways, because it's just so simple, and that's at the same time so complicated. So it's difficult. It's difficult to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't want to listen. So, anyways, it was a long and fun conversation. Do you want to add anything at the end of it?
I think we said everything I had to be said.
I think we covered everything pretty good, right? Anyways, thank you, Lars. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
After this in.
Yeah.
Take care. And you guys, thank you for joining in. Take care.